Welcome to Share Truth Apply Scripture. I'm Jordan Shambly, joined by Wesley Wildman and Cedra Sarton. We're all back together again. I feel like it's been a couple episodes still since all three of us
I know. The
have
last
been in
one,
studio together.
The last one that was recorded had Chris Woodward.
Chris Woodward.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have him on. Yeah.
Well, that happens this time of year. We got a New Year's, and I've been traveling a lot, meeting a lot of our supporters. One of the primary roles I do here at Engage is with our parent ministry, AFA, and I travel and meet all of our financial supporters throughout the country. And so being able to do that. So for those that are listening, I know that when I travel and meet our people, there's always at least one or two in the crowd that comes up and goes, I listened to you on Saturday, or I've got the Engage magazine, or I gave that to my kid and he loves it, or to their youth pastors. So please take the time to go to engagemagazine.net. Check out the most recent articles that we've written there. Now, like I said, it's a ministry that's for millennials, written and cultivated by millennials, and with the idea of building a biblical worldview. So go to engagemagazine.net. Check out our articles and our resources there.
Yeah,
got a handful of
connect
podcasts.
to us all kinds of ways. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media medium you prefer. You can pick that and connect with us.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, it's been really encouraging. I mean, I had an encounter just like you did, what you talked about at church last Sunday.
There you go.
During our lunch together, I was sitting across from a guy from Iowa who was just visiting, and he was like, I feel like I should know who you are.
Yeah.
And so I introduced myself. He's like, oh, yeah, I read your articles.
No
and
way. There you
yeah,
go,
and he's like, if I had my Bible with me, I'd get you to sign. I was like, I don't want to
no,
sign your
sure,
Bible.
sure,
No. But I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
And we've been getting emails recently from people asking for us to send a magazine to a grandson or to a nephew
or extra copies.
Oh yeah, extra copies. There have been requests for copies for inmates in jails and in prisons, and which has been really a blessing to us. So yeah, if you want us to send a copy to a loved one of yours or to people that you would want to see our material, feel free to email us again at engagefaq@afa.net.
Or you can go to Engage Magazine and click the tab that says Magazine at the top.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the preferred way to do it, is to sign up for them for yourself, completely free, not a subscription, just one-on-one basis kind of thing.
And we understand most, not all, but most of the topics that we are faced on a daily or weekly basis here in America are an uphill battle for the young adults. We understand that. But we have a lot of hope, a lot of encouragement, and we're going to keep doing our part to help build the worldview in a biblical manner for all the areas and subjects that come across our radio program.
Yeah, exactly.
And which one, speaking about radio programs, speaking about topics, we've been all across the board. We've covered a variety of different things. Yeah. What are we going to talk about in this segment today?
Well, I feel like this is a topic that a lot of people think is settled. You know, like they have there's a traditional way of thinking about this, and people are pretty comfortable with it. But in I would say in the past couple of decades, the young generation has been challenging it a bit, and that is college necessary? Is a college education all that culture has put it out there to be?
And like you said, in the last couple of decades, but even more so in the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
10 years.
Yeah.
But historically, we're not that far removed from a time when it was a pretty big deal for someone to go to college.
Absolutely.
It wasn't an achievable dream for everybody. And we went there, and then we came to the place where, in recent years, where it's expected. You finish high school, you go to college.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in addition to that, too, now I'm not an expert in this area, so we can have somebody on here, but it seems to me in my conversations and looking at my grandparents' degrees and their experience in college and things like that, it doesn't seem as if they had as much wasted classes.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They didn't have as much unnecessary curriculum and even propaganda. You know that in addition to wasteful time, but also they didn't have as much propaganda when it comes to the idea of safe spaces and things like that.
Really good.
So they didn't experience that. That wasn't as big of a wasted time for them.
And I'm sure that it was I know
more
that it was
beneficial.
very, very hard work, but you didn't seem to have students absolutely killing themselves to do it.
And student loans.
Oh, yeah, student loans.
Yeah.
I mean, people
the price of college now versus back then.
You know, back then and now, you have to take out these loans that could take decades for you to pay off.
A lifetime almost.
Okay. Okay, look, before we keep going, though, we got a lot to say here. We got a lot of talking points to get to.
Doesn't seem all like bad things.
No, right. Let's back up, though, because we got some good things here.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, and we'll end with me. We'll start with Cedra.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who of us went to college? Cedra, go.
Technically, I went to college.
So
Very
graduated.
No.
Then graduate
Very
from college.
briefly went to college.
What's brief?
Oh, like 2 semesters?
Okay, so half a year, or is that a year?
That's a year, yeah.
1 year.
2 semesters.
So that tells you how long it's been since I've been in college.
Yeah,
I'm asking how long.
You're like, oh yeah, how long is that?
Yeah.
So I only did 2 semesters of school with the intention of, I don't know what my intention was. I was just there because I guess I was
That's a
expected
good point.
to be.
We'll talk about
I was
that.
a history major, and as you can see, I'm putting that to work right now.
Right, yeah. So you went to school for 1 year as a history major, but you really had no intention on doing anything with that. Really wasn't sure.
I didn't know what I was doing.
You didn't know what you were doing. Okay, and that was 1 year in. Okay.
Yeah.
Jordan?
Oh, I'm a little about the same actually, but I was in college for a little while longer. I actually had 2 semesters left to complete to get a degree in English.
Okay.
But those semesters were full of classes that had nothing to do with English.
Okay.
And so I was kind of done with it.
Okay, gotcha.
So the reason I was at college, well, first of all, the reason I went to college to begin with was because it was expected of me.
Sure.
And because I felt like I had to.
Yeah.
That was like a duty or something like I had to do as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my mind going in. But as I was there, I was like, this is a good opportunity to learn, and to grow my mind and to learn the craft of writing, and the use of language.
Sure.
And then when faced with those last remaining 2 semesters, and by the way, I was paying my way through college. Had no student debt, still don't, and that's a blessing. But I saw the money it was going to take for me to complete that degree, as well as the time, the energy, and the classes that I was going to take that had nothing to do with what I wanted to do with the degree. Right. It didn't seem worth it to me to finish. So I had what I wanted to get out of it, out of the experience. So I feel like I completed college, even though they probably wouldn't say that I did.
Sure. I understand. Mm-hmm. But just to add to it, because I've known you for a long time, none of that decision that you made or anything else you had harmed or put your family on the back burner either.
Oh, absolutely.
So I mean, there's nothing.
No.
So you're not looking at 2 different job opportunities. I'm gonna do something for myself because I really don't care about it, and my family will just deal with it.
Oh
none of this had to do with.
And I think continuing with the degree would have at least harmed our livelihood to a certain degree because I had some money saved up, and that would have been used up trying to get that degree, so it was not worth it.
I just want, because most people's minds, when you say they started something, they didn't finish it, that was harmful. It could have been that they could have hurt their family if they should just gone ahead and finished it. Right. But that wasn't the case here.
Well, and I feel like I did finish it.
Exactly.
I accomplished my goal going in.
Right, exactly. I understand. But now on my end, that's funny. We're going full circle here because I did get a college degree.
Yeah.
Got a degree in general business at Mississippi State University, and enjoyed my time there. Took me, all jokes aside, and we can make college jokes about not finishing classes.
We can absolutely do that.
But it took me 5.5 years to end up getting my 4-year degree. I would say out of the year and a half more that it took me to get my 4-year degree, half of it was my responsibility, which I own, and I made the adjustments needed to finish.
Yeah.
However, the other half of that year and a half that it took me was I had a terrible advisor that didn't care.
Yeah, that can bite you because that was kind of my experience a little bit.
Advisor that didn't care, or one that didn't speak English. I had both.
Oh, that's an extra challenge, isn't it?
That's an extra challenge. So there's some different reasons why people finish and don't finish. Now I did finish, enjoyed my time there. So we'll get back to the talking points here, and what we're trying to help answer some questions here. But let me say this though: what I realized too, in high school, and leading up to it, there was a point. I don't know how true this is because I just did I just did it and I got through with it. But there was a point there where there's a huge emphasis on a college degree, primarily because people wouldn't hire you without it.
Oh, that's
so. Is that what's y'all's take on that? Is that a
well,
I mean
there are certain instances, like if I go to the doctor, and my doctor says I didn't really go to school for this, I've just kind of been practicing it for a long time, and I'd be like,
right, okay.
Well, I would say I'm going to need to talk to a list of your patients
and
just see how they are.
Yeah. So there's some things that it does make me feel more comfortable to know.
Yeah. A formal education has its purpose.
I just know from my experience, flashback, I don't want to give away my age, but 10, 11 years ago.
So you're older than 11 years?
I am, but 11 years.
Very good, man. You did learn something at college.
Yeah, well, at this time, 11 years ago, I was, my second semester of my senior year of high school. It's crunch time. I'm almost finished with high school. The next year is college. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some that knew exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, or at least almost the field they wanted to go to. They knew where to get started. I had no idea. But there was this idea that I have to do college looming over me. And I'm like, but why? So, like, I ended up panicking and then, like, taking sort of a gap year. It wasn't a gap year where you travel in Europe like some people do. It was a gap year where, like, I worked, I had a job and just kind of trying to think it through. Never in a million years did I imagine this moment that we're in now, sitting here with you, but
and you do hear the stories on the other end of people having regrets of not going to college and not getting their degree for different reasons.
That was my mom. My mom is a teacher. She's a kindergarten teacher now. She didn't finish her degree. She actually graduated.
There's a sense of accomplishment. There's also, in addition to a sense of accomplishment, there's also there's some jobs, as you mentioned, that require a degree in the sense that you can't get it otherwise. Being a physician, being an architecture, there's things that require a degree, and you can make significantly more money to provide for your family with the degree. So there are benefits.
Yeah, again, those 2 semesters that I actually did of college was actually my mom's final year of college. Yeah. So, like, my last day before going home for this, I thought I would return, but I didn't. My last day, I got up out of my dorm room and ran across the campus to her graduation. And she finished. And
Amen.
It's something she always wanted to do, and she is now a kindergarten teacher. And so, I mean, some people...
Just like that,
Yeah.
But I think the point is, and you can jump in here after this, Jordan. I think the point is that we're making is that the culture pressure of going to school or going to college for the sake of the experience and to rack up student loans that they're not going to tell you about, just to be going to get a degree with no purpose and with no that is what you want to try. That's what we're saying. Hey, wait a minute, think this through. I think one of the recommendations, now this was not our recommendation 10 years ago when I was going to college, but the recommendation now for a lot of people after they observing what we're talking about here, and that's to go find a part-time job or a full-time job for 1 year and then make a decision what you want to do with. Do you want to go to college or not? What kind of direction you want to go as far as your occupation. So kind of basically waiting a year, because there's a lot of things you can learn in real life, things that just will help you in making a loan to give you a better perspective on how the real world works before you go try to make a decision at college.
And there's an article up, engagemagazine.net. What's the exact title of that?
It's Do You Need a College Degree? And it's by Hannah Harrison.
By Hannah Harrison. So I encourage everybody to go look that up.
So mechanics, I'm just going to list a few here. Mechanics, welders, and this is totally maybe a surprise for many, but the hunting industry, coaching, being a barber, military. I mean, I just listed off 5 there, 3 of which can make 6 figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't even need a college degree.
Yeah.
Many athletes now that are really good athletes that work their way up end up not necessarily having a degree, but they have the skill set to teach and coach. Yeah. So there's all kinds of different things that you can make a lot of money without necessarily having it. So college is good. We support college for the most part, not the progressive agenda, but the concept of getting an education and furthering your skill set.
Yeah, and I think the value of college really lies for most people, unless you're looking to get a degree for a specific job that you need a degree for. The value of college really lies in the classes you can take.
That's right.
I mean, you don't have to go to college to get a degree. I mean, you can sign up for a class. Yeah. If you see something catches your interest, you want to expand yourself in that area. That's right. That's a great opportunity. It's kind of expensive, but it might be worth it. Yeah. And I really liked what you were talking about with your mom and how she went back and she actually completed. And I think that really takes a lot of the pressure off people. People think that you need to do this when you're young. And I mean, why?
Yeah.
Why do you have to do this when you're young?
What's the difference between year 1 and 2 or year 3 and 4?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, just go ahead. I mean, you can start your degree now and then finish it later when you have more time and more money and more energy. Or, I mean, honestly, the pressure that our society, and I would say some of that's dying away because the younger generation is becoming older, and we're kind of like changing the way that people are thinking. But there's still that idea out there. But that pressure really is artificial. There's nothing in real life that is going to pressure you to have a college degree unless you just want a job that requires one.
Right.
So I think what we can all agree is, like, it's a case by case basis.
Absolutely.
It depends on the person. It depends on the path God has put them on as to whether this college degree is something
don't take
that they
that
need to
lightly.
get. Do not. But something that is not optional, I think, is the topic of work. And I kind of just am feeding from a sermon from a couple Sundays ago. Wesley, you were there for that sermon at church. And like, just discussing the importance of, going out. There's of course there are exceptions. There are people who physically cannot work.
Small group, but they do exist.
So then that becomes the work of other people to make sure that person is taken care of. Yeah. And so that falls on, like, we're all able-bodied people. So we can get up every day and come to work, and I think that is our duty as, just as humans and as creations of God to do that, and God calls us to do that.
Well, and I would go beyond saying it's a duty. I think that we were created to work.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Apart from worshiping and glorifying God, our primary objective as creatures is to work and to subdue the earth. I mean, when God created Adam and Eve in the garden, the first thing he put them to was work. He gave them a chore list. He said, take care of this place, make it thrive, spread Eden across the world, basically. And so work is not a bad thing. It's not a punishment, and it's not a result of sin. It's a good thing that God designed. And I feel like there are people who genuinely do not like working, but I feel like everyone likes to create something. Everyone likes to produce something, and they enjoy that, no matter what that is, and no matter what degree. And that's kind of like a remnant, like a shred of that purpose in us, that we are workers. God created us to be workers.
Yeah, and we've said this before, but like, you can't have, and I know this is elementary here, but it's important to remember, keep your perspective here, is that you can't have a positive without a negative. You can't enjoy the Sabbath without also having worked before.
Yeah.
You can't have an appreciation for the good times without going through the difficulties and things like that. And so for us to be able to work, in addition to that, I'm not saying that it should be, gruesome or boring or whatever, but I'm saying at the end of the day, there are more times than not where you wish that you could, quote, do whatever you want, or I mean, or have an extended vacation, or you have more time off. Yeah. I know sometimes some jobs are more stressful than others, therefore you enjoy that time off, but if you didn't have a job to begin with, you wouldn't appreciate that time off. Yeah. And exactly. So it's important for us to keep perspective, and we all know these things, but I mean, just if you get down to the very bottom here, God said that he wrote in his word that if a man doesn't work, neither shall he eat. And also says if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an infidel.
Absolutely.
Church family, but more specifically, your house, your home, your spouse and your kids. Yeah. Then you're worse than an infidel. So we have to be working. We have to be providing for ourselves, providing for our family. It's biblically necessary, and we need to find, for those that are in a very low spot where they're grumbling and complaining because of their job or for different reasons, you can always ask yourself and pray about it. Look, is these biblical reasons to be upset? If so, maybe I need to look for a different job. Right. In America, you can find a job anywhere, all the time,
Pretty
just
much.
about.
Yeah.
Now, whether it fits, your perfect scenario, maybe not, but you could definitely find a different job. But the bottom line is, we need to be grateful that we live in a country where it's easy to provide for our families, and that's your first thing. Even if you're in ministry, your first thing is thank the Lord for providing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you brought up the freedom that we have here in our country to do that. Honestly, like we've talked about jobs that you need a degree for, talked about jobs that you don't need a degree for. I'll tell you another job you don't need a degree for is the one that you make yourself. Yeah. I mean, especially in the past couple of decades with the rise of the internet and people creating things. And some of it's silly, sure, but they're providing for their family through it. And I feel like that legitimizes it as a job. If they're working hard and they're good at what they do and they earn enough money to provide for their family, good for them and more power to them. And that should kind of enable us a little bit to be like, you know what? I can, in a very American way, kind of pull myself up and say, I'll take advantage of these opportunities God's given me.
That's right.
And not wait around for somebody to hand me something.
Right.
And just build something. I'm going to build something, and I'm going to provide for my family in that way.
Yep.
We have so many opportunities for that.
Oh, amen to that.
I just keep thinking of my granddad. He's 90. He just turned 92. And I remember as a kid, from the time that we could sit upright, he would have us on. He still plowed his garden with a horse and plow.
Oh, wow.
Not a tractor. When I was a little kid.
And me too.
He eventually he moved on to a tractor. But I remember as a kid, he would sit us on the horse.
Wow.
And we would hold on while he plowed the garden. Like, he had us out there. Doing all kinds of stuff. Like, he always taught us the importance of work, and his children too, and it just kind of passed down. And but like, if you strip it down to how God made things, like your basic necessities, they don't just, some things are out there. There are plants that grow that you can eat and stuff like that. They're just naturally there. But God, put man on earth, and they're supposed to cultivate the land and work it to be able to get their basic necessities that they need, like food.
Right.
You have to work. So I guess that, all in all, that just shows through God's creation. Even without him saying it, which he did, you see through his creation how important the work is.
Yeah, and it's in his nature too. He is a working God. He read Genesis. He rested from his work.
Sure.
That implies there was effort behind what he did.
Right.
He's God. He's omnipotent. He can do whatever he wants, and it is in a way effortless. But he rested, and that sets an example for us to work and then to rest, but work is a part of that picture.
Right. Proverbs 12:11 says, whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. And so it's important that we are selective in the things that we do, that when we're working, we're not toiling in vain or not doing something that's worthless. That yes, there's a time for a hobby or a time for a vacation or a Sabbath, those types of times, but the things that we do for our occupation to provide for our family, we need to make sure that we're doing it well and that it counts and that we're doing what we're supposed to do, because ultimately, as we know, that the work that we do is for the Lord.
Yeah.
And we work, like it says in Colossians 3:17, everything we do, whether it's in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to the Father through him. And so our actions, because when we think that we are just doing, quote, a job, our behavior, the situation that God allows us to be in, all these things come up on a daily basis in which we are able to witness and share the gospel and the love and the compassion, the forgiveness, and the truth of God in our everyday workplace.
Absolutely. Yeah, to me, it is really an amazing thing too when you see somebody who finds some work that they genuinely love. I really do think that is a very God glorifying thing. It's a God glorifying thing if you work hard, period, to provide for your family. But especially when you find joy in it, and it's something that you feel God has given you particular gifts and talents to do, and it kind of fulfills that part of you that you feel God designed. To me, that is an amazing thing, and I feel like it's a worthwhile thing to strive for. Yeah. If you feel like, if you are working hard right now at a job or whatever situation you're in, and you're working hard and you're earning money and you're making a living for your family, but you feel maybe there's something not necessarily wrong with your job, but maybe you feel like your efforts could be better spent somewhere else in a different kind of work.
I've had these conversations with people before.
Yeah. It's absolutely worth pursuing. I mean, don't be foolish and just drop what you have right now and jump into that, because that never really works.
Right.
But with discernment and with prayer especially, I think it is worth to look into. Yeah, absolutely.
And this image that you see a lot of times portrayed in like media, movies and comics, of people going in and working these mundane, like everyday jobs, and they're just like, this is terrible. You can find joy in doing those things too.
That's good. Yeah.
You don't. I mean, there's this idea portrayed that there's this one like perfect thing out there for you. I was born to do this one job, and if I don't do that job, like you're asked as a small child. I remember being asked as a kid about everybody. Yeah. They want to know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm 5, so either a doctor or a scientist, but like a mad scientist. I want to make dinosaurs. Like I'm 5, I'm a child.
Like
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah. So I don't, so like I don't know, but then there's just that push, and then as you get older, there's this one goal that you're trying to strive towards, and when it doesn't happen, maybe something happens and you don't make it there exactly, people don't find themselves.
Well, your desires change, but other people's of you don't.
Yeah. Well, exactly. But I mean, like, it's, to be able to be content, I am not where I thought I was going to be. And in fact, I think I'm in a much better place than I thought I was going to be. I had no idea, but I mean, like, I could find contentment, wherever I was placed. I hope I could. That's my goal.
Well, and the beautiful thing is, none of us really know what we're going to be when we grow up. And I say grow up in a sense of, like, it's kind of a picture. One day we will be in eternity glorified. We will have reached that state where we're headed right now. We will be grown up, and we will be doing what God designed us to do, worshiping Him, glorifying Him, working with Him for all of eternity. So all of our desires in that will be fulfilled in eternity. That is something definitely to look forward to. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sure Tooth Apply Scripture, and we hope to see you next week.